I'm Jenni Lessard. I'm a chef and culinary consultant here in the Qu'Appelle Valley in Saskatchewan, Treaty 4 territory and the homeland of the Métis. I've been really excited to talk to you students at Jack James School ever since one of your teachers, Ms. Levin, contacted me and said you were going to be having a feast. Of all the jobs that I do, cooking, catering weddings, designing menus for restaurants, starting restaurants, my most favorite thing to cook for is a feast or a celebration or a gathering where people are eating traditional food. And later on we're going to go back down to my kitchen, which is at the bottom of this great big hill, and we're going to go in and I'll show you some of the ingredients that you're going to be enjoying at your feast, and then we'll cook a little bit too. But I was thinking of what I wanted to tell you, and what I want to say is that life, especially the last year and a bit, has been really hard and really weird for everybody, for kids and adults. I've been really worried about elders and hoping that they stay safe, worrying about my kids who are adults now, but you know, there's lots of people that we want to make sure stay safe and healthy. And I think that what we've been through is a lot like this storm that we're seeing right now. It's April and it's snowing, and just like a few days ago, 5 or 6 days ago, I was up on this big hill and I was wearing sandals and a skirt and a sleeveless shirt, and I was harvesting sage and wild garlic that comes up on the hills. And today it's all covered with snow. But the things that are underneath this snow, they didn't give up. They're all protected. Some of them might have, just the flowers might have been killed off a little bit, but they'll come back because they're strong and they have roots. Just like we do. I rely on my Métis roots and my strong Métis heritage, especially the women in my family. When things are hard, I know that I'll spring back. I might get frozen a little bit sometimes. I might get sick, but I'm always going to come back. Underneath the snow, there are crocuses, and they're a special flower that blooms on the plains here, and you guys probably have them near where you live too. And the story goes that a bison, a little baby bison, was walking with his mother, and his belly button rubbed across the grass and it fell off, and then it bloomed into this snow, or into this gorgeous purple flower, and it's called, I'll have to ask my Cree speaking friend how to pronounce it right, but it's bison belly button. So those crocuses are still under here, and I'm sure when all this snow melts, they'll even bloom again. So let's be like the crocus and try to get through all this together, and probably even stronger. So we're going to see if I can find some things out here to show you, even though it's snowing. I dug around a little bit and I found this little guy under the snow. It's not crocus, and it's not sage, and it's not wild garlic, but it's something green, and it's living right there under the snow like we talked about. Haha! Yes. Okay, you can see the tracks leading up to the top of that hill. That's a creature known as Chef Jenni. Just kidding. That's where I was talking to you. And I came down here, and I'm right in the middle of a Saskatoon berry patch. So you can see the old Saskatoons from last year are all dried up. They're still really good to eat. They're good enough for the birds. They're good enough for me. I put them in soups and berry stews, cookies. And then you can see they're budding out. Oh, sorry. I took that one off. So that's what's going to become. First it'll flower, then it'll become this season's berry. So in my hand here I have a little pouch. And I was taught that when you harvest, when you pick anything from the land, you need to give thanks. So I give thanks to every plant nation that I'm going to harvest. So if these were now berries, it was like, you know, late July and they were all ready and I had my berry basket on me, I would lay down some tobacco that's in this pouch. It's grown specially by Wanuskewin Heritage Park, where I used to be executive chef. and they gave some to me for harvesting for their special meals. So I would lay it down, and I like to tell the plant what I'm going to use it for. So if I was using it to do a cooking demo for you guys, I would tell it that, and I would say thank you. And then when I'm done picking the Saskatoons or whatever plant or berry nation I'm picking, then I would lay down the tobacco again and say another thank you. That's how I was taught. Well, I came inside, had a nice warm cup of hot chocolate, changed into my chef coat, and here we are. We're going to talk about some of the ingredients that you'll be serving in your feast. We're having bison hot pockets. So bison used to roam the plains by the millions. They were all over, and they were basically a grocery store for the people of the plains. The bison provided tools, the hide provided clothing, and every part of the animal was generally eaten in some way for sustenance and enjoyment. So your main course for your feast is going to be a really slow cooked bison, pulled apart, a little bit of maple syrup, a little bit of molasses, some sage that also grows on the plains. And then we're going to put that inside my bannock recipe, fold it over almost like a pizza pocket, and bake it. So I'm going to be sharing my bannock recipe with you later. But that's your main course. And then for the salad, you're going to be having a Three Sisters wild rice salad. What are the Three Sisters? The Three Sisters is a form of companion planting, so planting things that grow really well together. And it was devised and perfected by Indigenous people in North America over the course of about 1,000 years or even more. So in it, beans are planted, and they grow up around corn. And the beans provide fertilization for the ground, and then squash, these are squash seeds right here, I'm going to plant in my garden. And this is a little bit of cooked squash, acorn squash. The squash provides ground cover and keeps the plants free of rodents and pests and bugs. So beans, corn, and squash are the Three Sisters, and they look absolutely beautiful together too, don't they? I wanted to show you, but I couldn't find the plant. It was covered in snow up on the hill. This is a wolf willow berry, or silverberry, I think it's also called. So this berry was used to thicken and sweeten soups and stews long ago. So it tastes like, to me, a little bit like vanilla pudding, a little bit like matcha tea. And then you see there's a seed in here. So you'd have to soak the flesh away, and you could use it to sweeten a berry stew like you're having at your feast. And then if you soak those berries and clean all the flesh off, you get this really beautiful, almost like diamond striped bead. And then people would pierce those with a porcupine quill or later with needles, and they'd make beautiful jewelry and also decorations for clothing. So jewelry and food. What else do I have? Oh, wild rice. So you're going to be having wild rice in your feast. This is wild rice that hasn't been cooked. So traditionally it would have grown actually wild in lakes and rivers, and people would have come along in their canoes, and they would have kind of hit the grass off into the canoe, and it would have been a little bit longer and a little bit lighter than this. This is actually seeded into the lakes. So while it grows in the wild, it isn't technically wild anymore. In some parts of Canada and the United States, people are still harvesting actual wild rice. But this is now providing a wonderful income for people in the north. I cooked at a wild rice camp, and it's a really interesting operation. It's very, very, very hard work to go onto the lake with the airboat harvester. They knock the first batch of rice into a boat. You have to shovel into bags, 65-pound bags, and you throw those into another boat. You go to the shore, you throw those onto the dock, and then an airplane comes or some other mode of transportation, and you get those to a rice plant, and all the rice is laid onto a tarp and it dries out, and then they roast it. Then it looks like this. So sometimes I pop it in a cast iron pan and make it like popcorn, or I'll just cook it. So you're going to be having it in a salad. It'll be cooked, it'll split open a little bit and you'll be able to see the white inside. Really good source of protein and fiber. And it just, to me, it tastes like the lake. When I was a little girl, I grew up out of town. We didn't have TV, we didn't have a phone. So I would swim in our lake and I would pick berries and cook. That's what I did for fun. So when I cook a pot of wild rice, to me it smells like the lake in my childhood. Boy, I'm making a mess here. Oh, so here are some more of the dried Saskatoons. And this is something else that I made with them. So this kind of looks like pemmican, which you may have heard of. Pemmican was a really good way to get people through the winter and when they needed food when they were on the move or traveling. This is kind of just more of a fruit leather made with Saskatoon berries and a little bit of fat and some apples. But traditionally, they would have taken choke cherries. So I know these things all kind of look alike, but they're not. They're totally different. These grow up on the bush where we just were too. So they're called choke cherries because when you eat them, ooh, kind of get you in the back of the throat. I picked these last year and froze them. There's a seed inside. And that would have been crushed, dried in the sun to take away a little bit of the toxicity. There's a little bit of a compound in there that you don't want to just eat a lot of, but it would help to preserve the bison meat. So it would be bison meat dried, bison fat, and choke cherry seeds, and then choke cherries made into a mash and then dried up. And people have found caches or storage areas of pemmican on the plains that are up to 80 to 100 years old, and they've taken them to labs and done testing, and they're still good to eat. So Indigenous people have been food scientists and farmers and just about every occupation you can think of that we have today. They did it on the land to survive and to thrive. I'm looking to see if there's anything I haven't talked about here. Rose hips, I love rose hips. So that's what happens when a rose kind of goes to seed. Has a beautiful flesh here. It's red and it has lots of vitamin C, so you can make that into a tea. Sometimes I cook it down and take the seeds out and make it into a butter and put it on bison tenderloin. This is my favorite thing to drink. It's Labrador tea. This is leaves. So they're kind of red on the inside, green on the outside, and they grow in the boreal forest. It's also called muskeg tea, Labrador tea, Hudson's Bay tea. And you brew it up, and it has a beautiful kind of piney smell. And it has a lot of health benefits to keep people healthy through the winter and the summer. So thanks for listening, and let's go make some bannock. Hi, welcome to my kitchen. I'm going to share with you the bannock recipe that my great aunt Ruth gave me and that I later used in my restaurant, in my catering, and now I kind of give it out wherever people want it because it's so easy. Everybody has a different way of making bannock. Some people make fry bannock, you can make bannock on a stick. Some people use all white flour, some people use lard. I use oil because a lot of the people that I cook for are vegetarian or vegan, so sometimes I use lard, but today we're using oil. There's no wrong way to make bannock. Well, there is one wrong way, and that's when you're grouchy or upset. It's a really good idea when you're going to be cooking for anybody to kind of take a breath, get thankful, and just be happy that you're cooking food that's going to nourish people. So this recipe has half whole wheat flour and half white flour. Whole wheat flour just makes it a little bit healthier, gives it a little bit more fiber, and to me it gives it almost a nutty flavor. So we're going to do 3 cups of whole wheat flour, 3 cups of white flour, 2, 3, sorry, I'm not leveling it off. Your commercial cooking teachers are going, ah! And then we're going to do 3 tablespoons of baking powder. There we go. And I like to put a little bit of salt. We're going to do about just a small 1 teaspoon of salt. and a little bit of sugar. You don't have to put sugar. I find that it just makes it a little bit softer. So there's all our dry ingredients. We're going to just mix this up. There we go. Get all the salt and the sugar and the flours mixed together. This is so quick and so easy. I use it as a pizza crust too a lot of times. And then pour in our oil. And then we're going to do 4 cups of water. Sometimes you don't need the full 4 cups. So we're just going to start with 3 cups and see where that gets us. And then, if you're making this at home too, you can mix with your hands. I just won't be able to turn off my phone if I have floury hands. Here we go. So we're going to add a little bit more water. It's coming together really nicely. And when that's all mixed up, we're going to form it into a circle on our baking pan and bake it at 375 for about 35 minutes until the top gets nice and golden and crispy. Okay. And if you were going to turn this into fry bannock or the kind of pizza pops that you're making with the bison, you'd add a little less flour, you'd roll it out on your counter, and then you'd cut it into circles, flatten it out, and then put your filling in the middle and fold it over. But because we're just making a baked bannock that I'm going to have for my coffee break today, this is what we're going to do. So we're just going to pour this out. So when my aunt gave me this recipe, I completely messed it up. I added way too much water, but I didn't have the money at the time to just be throwing out ingredients, and I didn't want to waste anything. So I just added a little bit more baking powder and a little bit more flour, and that's actually how this recipe was born. So sometimes when you make mistakes, it ends up being a good thing, and that's how a new product or a new style of doing things is invented. Okay, it's easier to do this with your hands. I'm trying to make kind of a circle here. But we're getting pretty close. Let's just call that a circle square. And then I'm going to put it in the oven and we'll see what it looks like when it's all done. Well, the bannock turned out great, I think because you were helping me. It's nice and crunchy on top and soft on the inside. Thank you so much for coming along with me up to the top of the hill and learning about some ingredients, and I hope you have a wonderful feast.
Mustes mit Sie. Mustes mit Sie.